There's a moment late at night when everything goes quiet. No notifications, no conversations, and no distractions pulling you in different directions. Suddenly, you're just there, alone with your thoughts. And it feels strange, almost uncomfortable, like your mind doesn't quite know what to do with the silence. So you reach for your phone or a video to fill the space, because staying in that quiet feels unfamiliar. But here's something most people never think about. There was a time when this silence wasn't uncomfortable at all. In fact, it was completely normal. For most of human history, night didn't mean scrolling or endless stimulation. It meant something completely different. So what did ancient humans actually do at night? And more importantly, what does that reveal about you? Let's explore it. You've been taught that sleep is one continuous block of 8 hours straight through with no interruptions. But ancient humans didn't follow that pattern. They often practiced segmented sleep. They would sleep for a few hours, wake up naturally in the middle of the night, stay awake for a while, and then go back to sleep. That waking period wasn't seen as a problem. It was normal and even peaceful. During that time, they would sit quietly, reflect, talk softly, or simply exist in the darkness. Now compare that to you. You wake up at night and your first thought is that something's wrong. You try to force yourself back to sleep, and if you can't, your mind starts racing because your brain expects constant rest without interruption. But maybe that middle of the night awareness isn't the problem. Maybe it's something your mind still remembers, a pattern from a time when being awake in the quiet wasn't stressful. It was natural. Today, darkness feels like nothing, just an absence of light. But to ancient humans, night had depth and presence. They sat around fires, watched shadows move, listened to subtle sounds, and felt the environment more deeply. Without artificial light, their senses adapted and awareness sharpened. This connects to sensory recalibration. When external input decreases, your internal awareness increases. So the quiet of night wasn't empty, it was rich and full of subtle experiences. Now think about your own nights. The moment things get quiet, your mind fills the space with thoughts, noise, and stimulation because you lost the ability to sit in that subtle awareness, not because you can't, but because you're not used to it anymore. There was no entertainment, no screens, and no endless content. So when night came, they turned inward. They thought about their day and processed emotions. This is what we now call emotional processing. But back then, it wasn't a concept, it was just life. And they didn't rush it or try to fix thoughts instantly. They let thoughts move naturally. Now, compare that to you. When your thoughts get loud, you try to silence them or distract yourself because thinking feels overwhelming. But maybe the problem isn't the thoughts themselves. Maybe it's the lack of space to process them properly. Silence wasn't awkward. It wasn't something to fill. It was something to experience. You could sit with others without talking. Just sharing presence was enough. This is what modern psychology calls tolerance for stillness. But today, silence feels heavy because your mind is used to constant input like music, videos, and conversations. So when all of that disappears, your brain reacts. It creates its own noise, not because something is wrong, but because it doesn't know how to be still anymore. Think about how much information you consume in a day. Messages, news, content, endless scrolling. Your brain processes all of it, even when you're not aware. This leads to cognitive overload, too much input and not enough integration. So when night comes, your mind finally has space and everything surfaces at once. That's why your thoughts feel loud, not because they're new, but because they've been waiting. Ancient humans didn't have this problem because their input was limited. You might think ancient humans were alone at night, but often they gathered, sat together around firelight, spoke softly, and listened more than they talked. There was a sense of calm connection with no pressure and no performance, just presence. This kind of interaction calms the nervous system in safe, quiet connection. But today, night feels isolating, even when surrounded by people online, because digital connection doesn't always give the same sense of presence. So your mind stays active, searching and looking for something real. Yes, night was dangerous with threats, unknown sounds, and predators, but their fear was external, clear, and immediate. Once the danger passed, the mind could settle. But your fears are often internal. What if? What could happen? What did I do wrong? This is anticipatory anxiety. Your brain tries to predict problems even when there aren't any. So at night, when everything is quiet, those thoughts become louder because there's nothing to compete with them. Day and night were clearly defined. Light meant activity, and dark meant slowing down. Their bodies followed natural circadian rhythms. But today, that boundary is blurred. Artificial light and screens keep your brain active late into the night. So when you finally stop, your body is tired, but your mind is still awake. And that mismatch creates restlessness. So what does all of this really mean? Your struggle with quiet nights isn't random. It's not because something is wrong with you, it's because your mind is living in a completely different environment than the one it evolved for. Your brain still remembers how to sit in silence, how to process slowly, and how to exist without constant stimulation. But your habits pull you in the opposite direction. So when night comes and everything gets quiet, your mind doesn't suddenly become noisy. It just becomes visible. And that's the part most people don't understand. Silence doesn't create thoughts, it reveals them. So instead of asking, why is my mind so loud at night, maybe ask something deeper. What hasn't been processed yet? What have I been avoiding during the day? What is my mind trying to understand? Because once you shift that perspective, night changes. It's not something to escape, it becomes something to understand. You don't need to force silence. You don't need to eliminate your thoughts. You just need to stop fighting the space where your mind finally gets to breathe. And slowly, something begins to happen. The noise softens, not instantly, but gradually, because your mind feels heard. And maybe the real lesson from ancient humans isn't just what they did at night, it's how they experienced it, not as emptiness, but as a natural part of being human. So the next time you find yourself in that quiet moment where your thoughts start rising, pause. Don't rush to fill it, just notice it. Because in that silence, there's something your mind has been trying to say. And when you finally listen, the night doesn't feel overwhelming anymore. It feels understood. If this resonated with you, you might want to explore more about how your mind works in silence, because sometimes the answers you're looking for only show up when everything else goes quiet. Thank you for watching. Your mind already knows how to embrace the quiet. It's just waiting for you to listen.